Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a single specific item of clothing that became arguably the most potent, most chilling relic of 20th century American history. Jacqueline Kennedy's pink suit.
It really is a phenomenal study in transformation, isn't it? We're watching in, just a few hours how a calculated symbol of global elegance and, well, political savvy is just instantly transformed by profound trauma.
Into an instrument of historical testimony.
Yeah.
Like a witness stand made of wool boucle, as you put it. So our mission today is to really analyze the deliberate, conscious choice made by a woman who must have been in the deepest imaginable shock. We're looking past sort of the narrative of the assassination itself and focusing on that single decision.
That one refusal.
That one refusal that etched the horror into the collective American memory forever.
And that memory, it's crystallized, isn't it, in one of the most unsettling photographs, I think, in presidential history. You have to picture the scene, the cramped, brightly lit interior of Air Force One. It's at Love Field in Dallas. Lyndon B. Johnson, he's now the 36th president, taking the oath of office. His face is just this grim mask of immediate responsibility.
Heavy moment.
Incredibly heavy. Lady Bird Johnson stands beside him, embodying, shock layered with this sudden official duty.
But your eye, it just goes immediately to the woman standing right next to the new president, Jacqueline Kennedy.
Yeah.
Just an hour and a half earlier, she was the first lady, the absolute icon of Camelot. Now she's a widow, and she seems completely removed from the political ritual that's happening right there.
Her face in that photo, it's a study in suspended grief. Some historians have even called it a statue of grief.
Wow.
It's composed somehow, yet her eyes are, well, they're hollowed out. They just reflect the horror she had witnessed, inches away from her own body.
And the garment she's wearing is horrifyingly beautiful. Mm-hmm. That bright, almost defiant raspberry pink suit. Wool boucle, double-breasted, navy blue trim.
Yeah, the details are so sharp.
But it's utterly ruined. It's not couture anymore. It's caked and smeared with these dark, grotesque, mottled patterns. It's the physical, visceral evidence of John F. Kennedy's murder.
Committed just 99 minutes before that photo was even snapped. It's unbelievable timing.
So if we just look at the logistics, the pure human reaction you'd expect. I mean, the shock surrounding her.
Well, the logic is overwhelming, right? Everyone around her, Secret Service agents, Lady Bird, her own staff, they were imploring her to change.
Begging her, basically.
Pretty much. A clean dress was laid out. It wasn't just sensible. It was a deeply compassionate thing to ask. A human request.
Of course.
It seemed like the only way to move forward with the state's business without this ghastly, unavoidable reminder right there.
But she refused.
Flat out refused?
Cold, flat, absolutely resolute. And the whole story, the whole arc of her public role on that terrible day, it hinges on this single, really staggering question. Why? Why did she absolutely refuse to remove the blood-stained suit? Why choose that confrontation over, well, cleanliness?
And to understand the power of that refusal, I think we have to start by appreciating what the suit was before the shots, its original purpose.
Okay.
We begin when it was the uniform of perfection, the calculated presentation of the whole Camelot image.
All right, so let's rewind. The morning of November 2010, 1963, the political atmosphere in Texas was, known to be volatile. Right?
Definitely volatile. But the mood among the crowds that morning, especially once the sun broke through in Fort Worth, it was described as electric. The crowds lining the streets were just enormous.
And the focus on Jackie was intense.
Oh, overwhelming, almost. Even before the motorcade officially left the airport, you could hear the chant from these huge crowds, "Where's Jackie? Where's Jackie?"
Wow.
The focus wasn't solely on the president. It was on the couple as this unified symbol. People wanted to see them.
And the political calculation there was just undeniable. Jacqueline Kennedy, she was only 34, but she was already this global fashion and culture icon.
And JFK knew it. He knew she was the key to captivating and maybe winning over Texas, a fiercely conservative state, but also very image conscious.
He seemed pretty aware of her star power, almost overshadowing his sometimes.
Oh, completely aware. He made that famous sort of self-deprecating quip that very morning, said he'd introduced himself in Paris as the man who had accompanied Mrs. Kennedy to Paris.
Right, I remember that.
And he acknowledged, with a wry smile, that he was getting somewhat the same sensation traveling around Texas. Her presence was high-stakes political currency, no question.
Which brings us directly to the suit itself. The raspberry pink suit. It wasn't just something she grabbed, was it?
No, not at all. We know the details. Raspberry pink, wool boucle, double-breasted, navy blue collar, and crucially, it was one of Jack's particular favorites.
He liked it specifically.
He didn't just passively approve it. He actively selected it the night before for the Dallas appearance.
That says a lot.
It speaks volumes about how meticulously they managed their public image together. He recognized Dallas was a specific challenge, this audience of powerful, wealthy, often, frankly, hostile Republican donors.
So that's where the explicit instruction comes in. You mentioned it sounds less like fashion advice and more like a tactical briefing. Were they really that aware of the backlash they might face?
Oh, absolutely. It was strategic counterprogramming. The Kennedys were acutely aware of the conservative disdain, especially from parts of the Southern establishment who just saw them as these East Coast liberals invading their territory.
So his instructions were?
They were a clear political jab, really, disguised as fashion advice. He told her, there are going to be all these rich Republican women at that lunch wearing mink coats and diamond bracelets, and you've got to look as marvelous as any of them.
Okay.
Be simple. Show these Texans what good taste really is.
Wow. That is basically saying our sophistication trumps your wealth.
It's subtle, but yeah, a powerful dig.
Exactly. And the suit itself carried a second, maybe even deeper layer of political messaging, which was
the American-made facade. You look at any photo, it reads instantly as classic French Chanel. That was the immediate sophisticated impression.
right. Everyone assumes Chanel.
But the reality was much more nuanced and politically very savvy. It was actually a meticulously authorized line-for-line copy.
A copy.
Yes, manufactured by a New York fashion house called 𝐃𝐄𝐄𝐏.
Why go to all that trouble? She could afford the real thing, obviously.
Politics, optics. First ladies throughout history have faced pressure, sometimes really intense pressure, to wear American-made clothes. You know, support domestic industry, project patriotism.
Sure, the Buy American idea.
Exactly. So by wearing this high-quality copy, she hit two targets at once. She maintained her image as this ultimate global arbiter of French-inspired style, which she liked, while also deflecting criticism from American designers and, proving her patriotism. It was clever.
So before everything changed, the pink suit wasn't just clothing. It was the physical embodiment of Camelot. American power, European grace, flawless control, sophistication, politics, all rolled into one garment.
It represented perfection, which is precisely the terrible, tragic irony we're setting up. This carefully constructed uniform, designed specifically to win a political battle on the streets of Dallas, was just moments away from becoming the unwilling canvas for an act of unspeakable chaos, an act that would just rip American history in two.
Okay, let's move to the physical reality of that trip, the ride into Dallas itself. The presidential limousine, that 61 Lincoln Continental convertible, Secret Service code name, SS-100X.
Right. And the sun was out, so the bubble top roof, which was removable, was off for maximum visibility to the crowds.
A decision that, in hindsight.
Instantly and tragically consequential. But the mood at that moment, it was truly triumphant. The motorcade was moving slowly, the crowds were huge, described as 8 to 10 people deep in places, just cheering, a deafening roar.
And that leads us to that final recorded exchange. Just incredibly poignant now, just before 12:30 p.m.
Yeah, Texas Governor John Connally's wife, Nellie Connally. She turned in her seat, facing the president, and said those, well, gentle words of reconciliation, really.
What were they again?
She said, Mr. President, they can't make you believe now that there are not some in Dallas who love and appreciate you, can they? Trying to reassure him after maybe some negative signs earlier.
And Kennedy.
He was still waving to the crowds, he smiled. And his last sentence on Earth was delivered with, ease and confidence. No, they sure can't.
And then?
And then the horror. From Jackie's perspective, the first sound was confusing. She described it later as just a pop.
Thinking maybe a motorcycle backfiring.
Or firecracker.
Exactly, something mundane, explainable. But then the visual evidence just contradicted the sound. She saw her husband clutch his throat.
Oh, God.
He started to fall toward her to the left. Witnesses noted his expression was initially puzzled, almost quizzical, like what just happened. The initial wound was shocking, but maybe not immediately catastrophic looking to her.
But the third shot changed everything.
Completely. It was described as a sickening explosion, a sound totally different from the first, and she witnessed the catastrophic impact at point-blank range, inches from her face. Just unimaginable. Pure sensory bodily horror.
Absolutely. And at that point, any pretense of composure, of First Lady decorum just vanished. Her reaction was pure instinct. Primal.
What did she do?
As the limousine accelerated violently, throwing everyone, she began scrambling out of the back seat, onto the trunk of the speeding car.
Onto the trunk. Why?
Instinct. Maybe trying to get away, maybe trying to retrieve something. Agent Clint Hill, the Secret Service agent, thought she was reaching for a piece of his skull.
Oh, my God. Clint Hill, the agent riding behind them.
Yes, on the running board of the follow-up car. He reacted instantly to the sound and the sight of Mrs. Kennedy climbing out.
He saved her life, potentially.
He sprinted, leapt onto the back of the moving limo, and desperately pushed her back down into the seat, shielding her with his own body. An incredible act of bravery.
And she was saying something to him.
He later recounted her desperate words, screamed right then, capturing the immediate tactile nature of her trauma. "They've shot my husband. I have his brains in my hand."
Oh.
This isn't history anymore at this point. It's raw physical violation of reality for her.
The drive to Parkland Hospital must have been a nightmare. Speed, terror.
A blur. Lady Bird Johnson, looking over from the presidential follow-up car, she gave this profoundly moving description of what she saw in the back of the Lincoln.
What did she see?
She described seeing in the president's car a bundle of pink, just like a drift of blossoms lying on the back seat.
A bundle of pink.
It was Mrs. Kennedy lying over the president's body. That image is so potent, it instantly shifts her identity. She's not the icon anymore. She's this broken victim covered in her husband's remains.
And when they got to Parkland, the chaos must have continued.
Oh, absolutely. Inside Trauma Room 1, she refused to let go of her husband's body, just holding on to him.
Refusing to let anyone see the full extent of the injuries.
That seems to be part of it. Shielding him, maybe? Agent Hill had to intervene again, gently pleading with her. It was only after he physically took off his own suit coat and covered JFK's head and upper back.
Only then.
Only then did she finally release her grip. Let the doctors fully attend to him, though the outcome was already clear.
And then she waited outside.
She moved to stand this solitary vigil outside the trauma room. Lady Bird, watching her, wrote about the profound loneliness she witnessed. It's quite moving.
What did she say?
She said, "You always think of her as being insulated, protected. She was quite alone. I don't think I ever saw anyone so much alone in my life. Isolated now, not by celebrity, but by the sheer magnitude of the trauma she alone had fully witnessed up close."
And then, at 1 p.m., the doctors delivered the news. Officially.
The inevitable news. They allowed her one final private moment with her husband, and this is maybe the most significant emotional transition of the entire day for her, an end of her private life in a way.
What happened in that room?
It's the ultimate act of a wife burying her future, isn't it? In that sterile, horrible room, she performed this deeply symbolic private ritual. She took off her wedding ring. Yes, that famous Van Cleef & Arpels ring, the one with the big diamond and emerald. 2.88 carat diamond, 2.84 carat emerald.
Did she?
And she slipped it onto his finger.
Oh, wow. Placing that symbol of their marriage, their union, onto his hand in death.
It's like she was essentially symbolically divorcing herself from the life they shared. Her role as wife was terminated in that specific act. It's heartbreaking.
So when she walked out of that hospital room a few minutes later?
She was no longer merely Jack's wife or the First Lady. She was something else. She was the sole, uncompromised witness to the event. And maybe she already knew what she had to do.
Which brings us to the climax, really. Air Force One. The bronze casket has been loaded aboard. The atmosphere inside must have been thick with grief, shock, uncertainty, a government basically decapitated.
Absolutely. And Jacqueline Kennedy is standing there, still covered in the grim testament of the afternoon, still in the pink suit.
And this is where that conflict comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Between human compassion and, I don't know, historical duty.
Exactly. It takes center stage. Lady Bird Johnson, stepping up into her new, completely unplanned role as First Lady, approaches her, offers that clean dress.
And it sounds like it was offered with genuine kindness.
Oh, completely. Genuine kindness and compassion. It was the logical, humane response to seeing someone in that state covered in gore.
It's the moment of decision. And Jackie's response, as recorded by Lady Bird and others, it wasn't emotional, was it?
No. It was flat, cold, and absolutely resolute. It's the defining quote. The quote that transforms the garment from just a victim's shroud into an instrument of indictment.
She looks back and says,
"Oh no, I want them to see what they've done to Jack."
Wow. In that single sentence, she just transcends victimhood. She deliberately steps into the role of historian, chronicler, prosecutor?
All of the above, I think. She understands, with this chilling clarity that must have been born of shock, that the suit isn't merely an artifact anymore. It is the most powerful piece of physical evidence the world will ever see.
She knew its power.
She understood the psychology of political tragedy, instinctively or consciously. To change, to clean the suit, would have felt like an act of erasure. She actually used that phrase later to the historian William Manchester.
An act of erasure.
Yeah. She said changing would have been like washing the blood off my hands. She consciously refused to sanitize the horror. Not for public comfort, not for political expediency. She was choosing moral indictment over hygiene and, frankly, public decorum.
That's an incredibly powerful metaphor, washing the blood off my hands.
Mm-hmm.
But let's dig into the mechanics of that public trauma. By refusing to clean herself, she's essentially forcing the nation to share in her contamination in a way. What does that do psychologically to a nation watching this unfold live?
Well, it weaponizes grief, doesn't it? In moments of huge national crisis, the public and often the government seek swift closure. They want a return to order, a clean narrative.
Right. Move on. Show strength.
Exactly. Her presence, specifically the suit, just denied them that clean narrative. It injected the raw, visceral trauma directly into the political transition itself. The swearing in.
It forced everyone watching the nation, the world, to look directly at the consequences of political violence. Made it personal, physical, inescapable.
Yes, she made sure that the trauma wasn't just something that happened to the Kennedys, but something they, the public, were forced to witness through her. No looking away.
But let's analyze them. I want them to see. Who did she mean by them? It wasn't just about Lee Harvey Oswald, right? She might not have even known his name yet.
No, absolutely not. The them implies a much broader guilt, a broader responsibility.
So connect it back for us.
We have to connect this back to the political atmosphere that defined her husband's very last hours. Remember, back in the hotel suite in Fort Worth that morning, JFK was shown that horrible, full-page, black-bordered advertisement.
In the Dallas Morning News?
Right.
What exactly was in that ad again? It wasn't just typical political opposition.
No, it was visceral hatred, specifically targeting him while he was physically in Dallas. The ad accused him of being soft on communism. It suggested his government was basically a police state, and it essentially labeled him a traitor.
Just toxic stuff.
It was toxic, accusatory vitriol aimed at completely delegitimizing his entire presidency, not polite discourse.
And his reaction to seeing that ad, his sort of grim foreboding, that set the tone for her, perhaps.
It must have. He looked at the ad and said, "We're really in nut country now."
Chilling words in retrospect.
That's incredibly chilling.
That
So when the shots rang out just a few hours later, the violence was immediately, for Jackie, connected back to that climate of intense hatred her husband had just pointed out.
So the they she's referring to on Air Force One.
It wasn't just the lone man with the rifle, assuming it was a lone man. It was a broad indictment of the nut country, the political hatred, the toxic divisions, the willingness to dehumanize your opponents that she felt had created the climate, the environment. Symbolically, it loaded the gun for his murder. That's the implication.
She used her private agony, her physical state, to wage this public, political, and moral confrontation. By refusing to clean up the evidence on her body, she was ensuring America had to look square in the face at the bloody result of its own toxic political atmosphere.
And this resolve, this decision, it immediately faced its first huge test, right? The necessity of stability.
Right. Lyndon B. Johnson had to be sworn in immediately. For national security, Cold War, they couldn't wait.
And he needed her by his side for that photo.
He insisted she stand there with him.
Yes. It was seen as a critical political necessity, projecting a seamless, strong transition to the nation, and maybe more importantly, to the Soviets watching around the world.
And her agreeing to do that, even in that state, it shows her understanding of public duty, doesn't it? Even over her own grief.
It does. But her presence, stained and silent, it fundamentally subverts the official political ritual taking place.
How so?
Her blood-stained pink suit forces the raw brutality of the crime directly into the official, sterile historical record of the oath-taking. Because of her deliberate choice to stand there like that, it's arguably the most haunting, chaotic, and frankly disturbing photograph of a presidential inauguration ever captured.
It's an inauguration photo and a crime scene photo all at once.
Exactly. It's both.
So the flight back to Washington, D.C. must have been incredibly somber. She sat near the casket, apparently, still in the suit.
Yes, fulfilling her role as the silent witness, continuing the mission.
And when Air Force One landed at Andrews Air Force Base just before 6:20 p.m. that evening, the reaction of Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General, her brother-in-law. That was telling.
Profoundly telling about where the real moral gravity of the nation resided in that moment.
What did he do?
Robert Kennedy rushed onto the plane, past the new president, Lyndon Johnson, bypassed the formal transfer of power completely, and went directly to Jackie's side.
Wow, that visual alone. The Attorney General ignoring the new center of official power for the woman holding the emotional and moral authority.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? It signifies that the true weight of the tragedy, the focus of the nation's grief, resided with her, not necessarily with the new administration at that moment.
And as they prepared to get off the plane, she was offered one last chance to avoid the cameras.
Yes, one final chance to exit the plane privately. Use a different door, away from the intense glare of the lights and the waiting public, who were just desperate to see her, to see how she was.
And she refused again.
Steadfastly, reinforcing her mission, she repeated it, apparently, to Robert Kennedy. Let them see what they have done.
Incredible resolve.
And so, holding Robert Kennedy's hand, she walked down those steps into the brilliant glare of the television lights. Silent, powerful, blood-covered, a witness who refused to flinch or hide. She made sure no American watching that night was permitted the luxury of looking away.
Her longest day finally ended when?
Early the next morning.
Back at the White House.
Yes, only in the early hours of the next morning, and only after the bronze casket had been placed in the East Room for viewing. Only then did she retreat to her private quarters and finally remove the suit.
And what happened to it then? The suit, the clothes?
Her personal maid, Proby Paredes, was understandably horrified by the sight and, frankly, the smell. She carefully handled the contaminated clothes, folded the suit, the blouse, the blood-caked stockings, the shoes, put them all into a box.
And crucially,
the suit was never cleaned. It remains chemically and biologically preserved exactly as it was when she took it off. The blood, the tissue, everything.
where is it now?
Sometime later, that box was quietly sent to the National Archives. It resides today in a secret climate-controlled facility out in the Maryland suburbs, handled only rarely by preservation experts wearing protective gear.
But there's a missing piece, isn't there? The hat.
Yes. The final poignant footnote about the accessories. The matching pink pillbox hat she wore, the quintessential Jacqueline Kennedy accessory, it was removed by her secretary, Mary Gallagher, back at Parkland Hospital amid all the chaos.
Yeah.
And it subsequently vanished. It has never been seen again, just dissolved into the chaos of the day, unlike the suit, which was so carefully preserved, lost to history.
And the ultimate fate of the suit itself, the preserved suit, it was sealed by her daughter, Jacqueline Kennedy, right?
Yeah.
2003.
Yes, she signed a deed of gift. And it stipulated the suit and its accessories, the stockings, the shoes, the bag, cannot be put on public display for 100 years.
100 years. So not until 2103.
Exactly. A century after the assassination.
Why? What was the family's reasoning for such a long ban?
The reasoning is really crucial here. The ban was put in place explicitly to avoid sensationalizing the tragedy, to prevent what they specifically termed rubbernecking at their deepest family trauma.
Rubbernecking, like gawking at a car crash.
Precisely. They recognized that the public appetite for morbid spectacle could easily overshadow the historical gravity and the personal loss. They wanted to protect her memory and his.
So that brings us full circle, really. Jacqueline Kennedy weaponized that suit for one single, overwhelmingly powerful public purpose.
To serve as a symbol of national trauma and indictment?
Yes. But once that purpose was served, once the photo was taken on Air Force One, once she'd walked down the steps, once the narrative was set, she retreated. And the suit reverted to being the physical embodiment of her most profound private horror.
Jacqueline Kennedy's decision honors that distinction perfectly between public witness and private grief. The public has seen the image of the suit. They've received its message of indictment. The 100-year ban essentially says, you have been shown what it represents. You do not need to see the object itself again.
It elevates it.
It elevates the suit from just a historical artifact, a piece of clothing, into something more like a sacred relic, protecting the memory of a wife and mother from becoming, well, cheap spectacle.
So we circle back to that haunting photograph on Air Force One, the woman in the bloodstained pink suit. That garment started the day as this symbol of sophisticated political strategy, Camelot's glamour personified.
Calculated perfection.
By midday, it was transformed into a canvas of utter destruction. And in the hours that followed, through this act of incredible, almost unbelievable, steely will,
Jacqueline Kennedy turned that gruesome canvas into an instrument of indictment, an indictment against a climate of hatred she felt was responsible for the violence that killed her husband.
her entire world just ended. In the middle of a motorcade on a sunny afternoon. Yet in that moment of unimaginable trauma, when every single human instinct must be screaming to hide, retreat, seek cleansing,
She did the precise opposite.
she found the strength to stand in front of the entire world, covered in her husband's blood, demanding that everyone confront the raw, visceral consequences, making sure history recorded the horror exactly as she saw it, as she experienced it.
It is a profound historical performance in a way, a necessary one, perhaps.
A public act that was essential for national stability, for historical documentation, but performed by a woman who was simultaneously in the absolute throes of profound, life-altering private shock.
And maybe that's the final thought for you, the listener, to consider. Think about the immense moral and emotional gap between that private trauma, the brains in her hand, the ring on his finger, and the public duty of witness she so fiercely embraced.
What does that choice, that resolve, tell us about the nature of leadership, especially non-political leadership, moral leadership? And what does it tell us about the power required to weaponize your own grief for the sake of historical truth, right in the middle of a foundational national crisis?
That's the tension, isn't it? Between the artifact, the suit in the box, and the relic, the symbol it became. Something to definitely mull over the next time you see that indelible, haunting image.